Oh,
Hi.
hello.
Hi. Oh, hi.
Hi, I'm Dominic. It's very
Hi.
nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
All right, so our kiddos are joining in very slowly. I see someone is already here. How are you?
I'm all right.
Good, good. Wonderful. Thank you so much for doing this with us.
Sure.
Yeah. Yeah, Scott Miller at New Line told me to reach out to you because I've done some shows with them and
Some shows. I think you've done all their shows.
I've done a few. Yeah. But yeah, no, he's a great guy and thank you again so much for doing this.
Oh, of course, of course.
Yes, now you're in New York right now, correct?
I am.
Yes. How is that?
Well, if you like that sort of dystopian
Yeah.
experience, it's fantastic. Yeah, it's weird and yeah.
Yeah. I imagine we were set to we have two performance groups at our academy. And our teens, we were supposed to be heading to New York Thursday of this week to see Hadestown and do Harry Potter and some more stuff.
Oh, so sad.
Yeah, but we felt very fortunate that the news got to us before we got there. And all that, yeah.
Yeah, can you imagine being stuck here?
Oh, I love those kiddos, but
I know. I mean, like, just worrying about them would be so stressful.
Yeah.
Like, it's not stressful enough on a field trip.
Oh, yes. So I do have to confess, I am a huge fan, yes. But you were also on one of my favorite TV shows of all time, which was was Smash, not Glee, Smash, yes. And I absolutely, we have a student. Hi, this Julia. Thank you for joining us, Julia. Hi there.
I don't see you, Julia. Don't see her.
Oh, and here comes a Katie, and there's someone else here, and I'm not sure who. Let me go to gallery view here.
Okay. Oh, I see Julia now. Okay.
Sorry.
No, you're good.
Icon and Galaxy Tab 8 icon.
Yes, I'm not sure who Galaxy Tab 8 is, but Galaxy Tab 8, if you would like to turn on your camera and
Here. Oh, no, Katie. Hi,
Katie. Hi. And Katie is our outreach coordinator at the academy.
Oh.
Katie, this is Ann. And Julia, this is Ann. Julia is one of our students. And
Hi.
Galaxy Tab A, I am not sure who you are, but we would love to see your happy, shiny face. So we're still a few minutes out. But yeah, I'm glad that you're doing okay in New York. And
ask me anything you want about Smash. If I can answer it, I will. But I want you to know that I'm so clueless that when the tabloids had like, Will Chase is dating Deborah Messing, I was like, no, they're not dating. And then of course they were, but nobody told me.
Well, it was an interesting show premise, and I never really thought that I would get into it. Being a theater person, of course, I like delve into it as much as possible. But I just, the music was so great.
Yeah.
And I hope at some point that that musical Bombshell does get some sort of stage life. I did see you performing in the concert version. You did the
Never Met a Wolf,
which is one of my favorites. Yes. So Julia, why don't you go ahead and start if you have any questions for Ann?
Well, I just wanted to tell you, I watched like the first season of Smash and I loved it. And then my dad was like, "Oh yeah, we have to cancel our account," and then I never got to finish it. So I'm very sad.
Totally fine.
So just know I tried very hard.
And I appreciate it. It's just that season 2 basically has almost nothing to do with season 1 because they changed showrunners. And so I guess, I don't know what the network wanted them to go in a different direction or whatever it was. Nobody knows. But like literally, it's like they're two different series completely. So if you like season 1, season 2 almost has nothing to do with it.
Well,
It's like it has some of the same actors and all that, but you're like, what's happening?
That's very
maybe
true.
I can see if I can try to get my dad to get it back, because then I can finish watching it.
Oh no, you know, it's on NBC.com.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, okay. Well,
Yeah,
I
don't worry about it.
Now, Anne, you created the role of Christmas Eve. You originated the role of Christmas Eve in Avenue Q, which was the first show I saw on Broadway.
Oh wow.
Yeah. That was really, it was amazing. What was that like? What is it like to originate a role? What's it like to create something that no one else has done before?
Well, the thing about that is, and especially something like Avenue Q, you have to understand that Avenue Q basically started as like 3 songs and a skit. You know, it was like something the Jeff Marks and Bobby Lopez wrote songs for the BMI workshop, right? And you know what that is? It's that class that like aspiring songwriters take, and they write, you know, songs, and then other peers critique them, and then they talk about like how to make a musical, like that. Okay, so they had written these songs, and they needed an Asian actress to be in. Everyone's a little bit racist, so they basically said, "Does anybody know anybody?" And Amanda Green was in their class, and she was a classmate of mine in college. So she recommended me, and they called me up and said, "Would you come and learn this song?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure. What else am I doing Thursday?" And so that's sort of how it started. You know, it was literally 2 songs. And If You Were Gay was the other one, you know,
Okay.
and then Everyone's a Little Bit Racist. They just needed more people. So that's why they asked me to come in and sing it for them. But literally from that moment on, I was the only Christmas Eve, because I just didn't want anybody else to ever play it.
Totally get it.
And then we just, you know, it just kept getting bigger.
Yeah.
You know, they expanded the idea. Then we did it as a reading. Then, because they thought it might be like a TV show. And so we did it for some producers, and the producers were like, "No, it's really interesting seeing the puppeteers with the puppets. Let's try to do it on stage." So then everybody revamped. It was like, okay, now it's on stage. You know, then it was like, let's try to write a book. So that's sort of how the whole thing came together. It was definitely songs first, book second.
And you know, oh, so sorry, I didn't mean to cut you.
No, go ahead.
Avenue Q, the year that it opened, was up against, you know, Wicked and Taboo and a couple of other big
Carolina
shows.
Trains.
It sort of like was the sleeper hit, you know, it surprised everybody and won so much. And is still just such a great show. And I'd like to introduce Mrs. Amanda Ambler, who's joining us. She's our Assistant Director of Education.
Hi.
And the gentleman in the background is her husband, Brett. And he just finished, about a year ago, a production of Avenue Q here. And he was, I am absolutely spacing.
Peggy, we love you.
I can't remember. I can't remember the character's name, but it was Brian.
A year ago, and I was Princeton and Rod about 6 years before that.
Oh wow. Was
So-
this the production that Ben Nordstrom was the choreographer?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Yeah, so great to it's so great to have you. We have some more people jumping in here, as you see. So tell us, what inspiration did you draw from to create the character of Christmas Eve? Because she is while she is a caricature to a certain point, she is a human being. She has stories, she has emotions.
Yeah, no, you're basically just trying to pull on.
Alice, why don't we have sound?
You're basically just trying to pull on the parts of yourself that you think might be appropriate for her. You know, I have a lot of relatives who have accents. I have, you know, and I was basically trying to come up with sort of like the toughest of them, draw upon the toughest of them. and still sort of make her real and human. I just think that she's so pragmatic. Like, her part in the show is to be kind of a truth teller,
Mm-hmm.
and anchor like a whole bunch of crazy puppets. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I just tried to be like the practical one.
Very awesome. Miss Katie, do you have any questions for Anne?
I'm sure we'd like to know about the whole learning how to work the puppets.
Well, that, unfortunately, I'm the wrong one to ask. I wasn't allowed. I mean, we talked about me actually being a puppeteer, and then they were like, no, it's too confusing. You just don't touch them. Let the actual puppeteers work them and like be the second hands or whatever. Because for a while I would reach over and like be like Kate's hand or something.
Oh yeah.
When we did it at the O'Neill, and then they were like, no, too confusing. You just stay away and let the puppeteers do everything. Like, okay. In terms of training the actors, we had puppet school. And so, like, basically how it went was, if you auditioned for Avenue Q and they thought you might be right, then you were sent to puppet school, and they sort of tested you to see if you had any aptitude for puppetry. And a lot of people had zero. It's super, super hard, first of all. Like, it's like dance,
Oh yeah.
but all your strength has to be in your arm. And it's incredibly painful for everybody when they start. It's so much strain on your shoulder and on your forearm, and like, basically people just walk around like ow, ow, ow all the time when they're learning. It's really, really hard. That being said, if you passed puppet school, you were kind of on a fast track to Broadway or any of the companies, because it was so hard to find people who could be comfortable.
Right.
It's because you, as the puppeteer, and this is so hard for a lot of us to get used to, we're not supposed to be looking at each other's faces. I look at the puppet face. You know what I mean? It's like, and the puppeteer, it's like, who cares? I'm not looking at you. But the puppeteer's face has to mirror what the puppet is doing. Or the puppet is supposed to match the puppeteer's face. So they're like acting up a storm. They're like smiling and shaking their head and looking and winking. And I'm like, okay, don't pay attention to them. Look at the puppet.
Right.
So that's sort of that's sort of like all the different problems of that part of the show.
Wonderful.
And I'm sure you know this, Brian, / Princeton Rod, that how difficult that is sometimes.
I'm live. Yeah, it's a weird transition. When we rehearsed for a day or two with no puppets, just addressing each other, and we still have our books in our hands and everything, and then switching to looking people in the hand instead of in the face it's an odd switch. You get used to it though, like anything else, and it becomes natural.
Right. But it's like when you're trained as an actor, you're so like to look in each other's eyes all the time. And it's like, nope. Don't look over there.
Yeah. And, as an audience member too, for me, that first initial maybe 4 or 5 minutes of the show, it was, where do I look? Do I look at the actor? Do I look at this puppet? But at some point it became one, and you just saw the entity as a whole. I want to switch gears a little bit here. You also did the recent revival of Cinderella, Roger and Hammerstein's Cinderella, which is really, really awesome for 2 reasons. One, we have been working with our students on getting them to understand that there is more to being a current performer than just being able to belt your face off. You have to be able to switch between styles. And watching your performance and listening to you on both recordings, you hear that lovely, full, healthy belt in The More You Love Someone, and then more of a legit stream mix in like Stepsister's Lament. So what advice would you have for a performer who is up and coming, like Julia, or like the lovely lady we have down here with the headphones, Carrie, her daughter, our performer? She is also she's a partner at a school that we're mentoring to help build a theater program. So she's learning things from the ground up. What would you say, and I got way off track there, was what would you say the advantage to being able to switch between styles and being multifaceted versus finding one wheelhouse?
Oh, well, of course, obviously, the more understanding you have of all the different genres, the easier it is for you to find work,
Mhm.
to adapt. I can't imagine any of today's performers. I feel like everybody can do everything.
Yeah.
I I can't. I'm not a dancer. If I could go back in time and change one thing about myself, that would be the thing I would change, is like go to dance class at all. Um, I think for me, it was much easier. I don't think of my voice as a thing that changes. I think of it's just my voice, right? So it just how like do I address the needs of the piece? And I grew up learning Rodgers and Hammerstein. I know that canon very well.
Mhm.
Never having done it, never being cast in it necessarily, but I know that style and I know all the work. So when I got Cinderella, it was so easy for me to jump into that, style,
Mhm.
because I understood it already. Um, More contemporary works, how can I say? I think the hardest part is like, you know, we we're just trying to make it sound okay.
Mm.
Like, my voice is my voice, and I just try to make it sound appropriate for whatever show I'm in. So when it's a pop show, then it tries to be more pop, and if it's a legit show, then it's more legit. I'm just using different colors, but it's all the same instrument. I don't feel like I'm, like, oh, I had to learn how to do this. I can try, like I've tried, to scream and whatever, but it's still my voice. It's still gonna be me. And I just feel like as long as you're kind of like interested in educating yourself in all the different genres, you should be fine.
Yeah. Agreed. Agreed. Julia, remember that. um, so, and what has been your favorite performance moment, whether it's on film, on stage, on the sidewalk? What has been your most your top thing that you've done?
Oh, that's really hard. um, there have been so many moments. Honestly, that Actors Fund concert you talked about when
Yeah.
I did Never Met a Wolf, that was just thrilling on kind of like the entire theater was screaming and full and packed. And it was like, that was the only time I've ever felt like that was like being the Beatles at Shea Stadium. You know what I mean? That
Yeah.
was really exciting. But like in terms of like a show, I don't think I've ever been prouder of a show than of Avenue Q,
Mm.
because that literally got built from nothing. And then we did it at off Broadway at the Vineyard, and I thought that was going to be the peak. Like I just thought like, okay, this is the best version of this will ever be. And then they were like, we're going to move it to Broadway, and I'm like, sure you are. Like did not get it. Like I just thought, well, who's going to see this on Broadway? There's no spectacle. It's a bunch of puppets. We're going to be so far away from everybody. And they explained to me that they were going to try to find a small dinky-doo Broadway house and that we were going to try to do it there. I was like, okay, but I don't think this is going to work. Well, I'm wrong. So that, when we opened that was thrilling. That was thrilling, because that was definitely a piece of theater that was started at nothing and then just kept growing and growing, and to have that whole journey. And then I got to go to London and do it there, and that was exciting too. So, I've had so many great peak experiences.
Wonderful.
But it's hard to narrow it down, yeah.
Yeah, Brett?
Avenue Q? How long did you work on Avenue Q beginning to end? How long was your run with that?
Okay, so we started doing table reads of stuff like in 2000. Then off Broadway 2003, and then we moved to Broadway at the end of 2003. Then Broadway ended 2009. And in the middle there, I went to London. and I did some other shows. I mean, for me, my association with Avenue Q, 3 years and change, maybe something like that. But the show itself, obviously 6 years.
Awesome. Now, you are from Hawaii, is that correct? Am I remembering that
Correct.
correctly?
Yes.
What is the draw for Broadway in Hawaii? Is it for young performers? Is it like how it is here on mainland?
In terms of what?
So I realize I made that the vaguest open-ended question. So, for a lot of kids, especially here in the Midwest, like that, Eye of the Tiger, Broadway is where you got to get. New York is the pinnacle. Is it the same idea for theater kids in Hawaii as it is for students here in the Midwest?
I think Broadway will always sort of be the pinnacle for stage. It's hard to say because when I was growing up in Hawaii, and this is a really long time ago, we just didn't have access to as many Broadway typey things as we do now, obviously. And so I was lucky in that I got to go to New York like twice while in my, high school years and see Broadway shows, so that I sort of had something to shoot for. Like in my mind, it was like, if I could do that, if I would be as good as that. To me, Broadway is it's like playing in the major leagues, right?
Yeah.
So in my mind, I was like, if I'm a legitimate actress, I have to go and make it on Broadway. But I don't know that that's true for the majority of kids in Hawaii, because I don't know that they, at least at the time, they didn't kind of weren't given that exposure necessarily. Like the only kind of thing we ever got was the Tony Awards. So there certainly were a lot of kids, or some kids from my time back then who made it to Broadway, who went to Broadway. But I wouldn't say that there was a huge push for it necessarily to be successful. What does that mean? I think so much more so now, but at the time it just seemed like it was a kind of an isolated, far off dream for me, because I really didn't have a whole lot of people around me that got it or understood that whole ambition. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Yeah, that was nice. Thank you. So tell us what it was like jumping into Les Mis. Homework.
All right. So I had done Avenue Q for Cameron Mackintosh in London.
Mm-hmm.
And I came back to the US and I got a call saying would you like to come and replace in the Broadway company of Les Mis? And this was the 06 revival. Of course, by the time I got this call, it was 08 or something. And I was like, yeah, sure. Yeah. So I went in and I sang whatever that is, your chunk of Master of the House. They were like, yeah, you'll be fine. Okay, so let's just jump in, just learn the part. Okay. So I had rehearsal for a week or so where we went over the song, and then they taught me my blocking, and they were like, okay, so you'll be going in. And it was a nightmare because I really had no idea of how the show went, where the song happens in the show. I watched the show obviously as much as I could, but there's no substitute for actually putting your body through the motions of it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I ever rehearsed any of the costume changes until I went in. Do you know what I mean? They were like, oh, you'll have a dresser and she'll put your dress on you. And you're like, okay. So, I'm sitting in my dressing room going I don't know what to do. I literally had no idea. You know what I mean? And they just assume it's going to be fine because you're a professional and everybody knows the show. Well, you don't. So when you go on, so then when I went on, and there's this very famous story of the first week that I went on, Gary Beach didn't make his entrance for Master of the House. And so we were all out there for 32 bars trying to figure out how to start Master of the House. Now, every single Thenardier cover was on stage, and any one of them could have sung the lyrics, but they're not playing Thenardier. So then what do? And I was like, I don't even know his part of the song. I'm just starting the show. You know, like this is my first week. I barely know now, you know, like literally I learned the song like this. Now I move a cup, over there's a fork. It was literally like that. That's how I was, you know, trying to remember my choreography, which is basically just moving shit around the tables until he comes in. So I'm like, I don't even know it. I can't even pretend to be him. Well, 32 bars of like nothing was, people going like, hey, where is that Thenardier? You know, that gets old really soon. And there's like a famous YouTube recording of it. Like you can hear like people just sort of making stuff up forever until he comes on. Anyway, that's, you know, to me, that's the problem with replacing. You don't really feel like it's your show until you've done it a bunch of times. So I felt like I was no good at all for like the first 2 months. And then I finally kind of figured out, oh, right, I can do stuff. I can be myself, or I could add a bit or something. But up until then, I was just sort of going through the motions because I had learned somebody else's track, but I had no idea why I was doing any of it. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that, you know, that brings a whole new skill set to light that you don't even think about. You know,
totally.
Show, you think, oh, it'll be fine, but you're jumping into a role that somebody else made their own. And you had what, a week and a half to learn.
Right. And they made up bits and you don't even know why it's funny.
Mm-hmm.
But it's sort of like, but come over here and do this. And you're like, okay, why? It's just,
okay.
It's just so inorganic. You know, there's no joy to it. And it was rough. It was rough.
Now, I'll switch gears here a little bit again. So, you know, as we addressed when we first started, you were on Smash, which to me may have been the greatest TV show ever.
Well.
And I watched both seasons.
Well, good for you.
So my first question is, how close to real life was that, and how much of it is dramatization? Like, you know, that show Veep, they say that's pretty close to how Washington, D.C. was or is. How close was Smash to real life Broadway?
Now, Dominic, I feel like you've been in many shows.
Yes.
And you know from personal experience that anything that happens on Smash is very unlike things that would happen in your personal experience. Am I correct in saying that?
Yes, that is very true.
Okay. All shows are exactly the same. All shows are the same. When I am on Broadway and you are in St. Louis, it's the same process. So none of it was realistic from my point of view.
Nice.
Am I wrong? Am I wrong?
Oh no,
Okay. So I mean, like I can see you guys are laughing, but like, did you ever at any time watching Smash go like, that's how it is?
Oh no.
Right. Okay. So basically, when we were doing it, we were scratching our heads, going like, what? You know, like, what? This makes no sense. Like, why? I mean, wait till you get to season 2 if you want to see a lot of that. But like literally, you know, Christian Borle and I would be like, this is not how, never mind. Like, you know,
Well,
like nobody cares what you think, you know, like just say the line and okay, fine. No, completely unrealistic, completely ridiculous.
Yes. And you know, it was some of those scenarios were so over dramatized. It was like, certainly this can't be what it's. I mean, you know, and then you're like, well, I don't know, maybe secretly that really is how it is. But
like, How? Like,
Yeah, just
in what way?
the whole craziness between, well, she's Marilyn, no, now she's Marilyn, and this is where how this is. Yeah, no.
Well, that's ridiculous.
Yes.
On the first day of rehearsal, somebody would have said, "You're Marilyn, and you're Marilyn's cover," or, you know, Uma Thurman is Marilyn, and you guys are both her cover, or what, you know, whatever version of this thing that we're doing. No, you don't start rehearsal and go like, I wonder who's going to be Marilyn.
It was funny when that show came first premiered. I was working at a small theater in North Florida, and the owner of the theater, good old boy, just a good old boy. That first episode was like, well, that's how it is, and I was like, oh, you sir do not know. But yeah,
no, that's not. You know, we all know that's not how it is. At least I hope we all know that. Like, you do realize that every show is the same.
Oh yes, yeah. It doesn't matter if it's in a small theater in, you know, Atumba, Iowa, or if it's, you know, the biggest house
on Broadway.
Yeah.
Correct. Every backstage is the same. Every show is the same. like I've played a million theaters. I've done every contract known to man, and it's the same. So I'm just like, okay, so, you know, no one's gonna let her walk out of the theater with her wig and her mic in her costume.
Oh no.
No, that's not gonna happen, you know.
Or in costume, or just not show up for a rehearsal, and then,
you know, the playwright and the actor are not going to have sex in the rehearsal room at night. Okay, because the building is locked.
Yes.
You know, stuff like that, and you're just like, oh, boo.
The craziness.
Did you see? Okay, so I just had to rewatch the last episode of season 1 because we were live tweeting it or something for something. I don't know why. So I'm watching it going like, oh, I forgot this part where they're writing a song at about 10 minutes to curtain. They're like, give this to Marilyn. I'm like, when is she learning this shit? What?
No, for real. If you've not seen it, people watching, they're literally in the lobby writing it,
the song.
Run it to her as Act 1 begins. Like, learned.
I mean, especially amazing considering there was no musical director in the show.
Oh my gosh, there wasn't.
No. I don't know how we did that show, but there was no musical director. So good luck, everybody.
Oh, and also it was fully orchestrated when they got it to the orchestra for the finale.
Yeah.
Now, Carrie.
Well, Tom's really good and fast.
He's so good.
He's so good.
Yes. Now, Carrie, as somebody who is learning this for the first time, Carrie is, as I said, she's part of our mentoring program through Jumpstart Theater and EDTA. And this is her second year with us, and her school actually got to do their production before everything shut.
Oh, good. Oh, good.
And she just did Annie. So Carrie, do you have any questions or any comments or anything for Ann? I will go ahead and unmute you because I have all the power right now.
Well, I joined because first of all, I love to learn. And, you know, I always have this philosophy of be the dumbest person in the room. So, you know, I just like being around smart people. So also Avenue Q, when I saw it, I just thought it was just the most genius, inappropriate yet childlike thing ever. And so when I saw you were a part of it, I just was like, oh my God, I have to be around this person. I have to see what she has to say. So really, it's just what a joy that show is. I guess my question for you is, just as a professional, do you have any advice for, because I have 2 little girls that are in theater and just love it and love the joy of it, and I have tons of students that do it. Do you have any advice for them that I can bring back to my students or my kids? Like, if they are interested in doing this as a career, what what for them, what they could do, or anything, any words of wisdom or advice that I would say, hey, I talked to this lady and here's some just a quip or a quote.
Okay, well, this is based on just, my experience. I feel like everybody's path is completely their own. I've known a ton of people who have gone through like theater school, professional training programs, and then turned out they didn't want to pursue it because it was too much stress.
Mm-hmm.
I've known a lot of people like myself who didn't do anything like that, just got their bachelor's degree and was like, I guess I'll try theater. You know what I mean? Everybody's different, and there's not going to be one set way to performing. If they want to do that, kind of like that early on in the game, like take classes and go to a professional training program, I'd say go for it. I think that's amazing. Mostly because of the people that they'll meet. They'll have a group of peers that will be able to they'll be able to encourage each other and give each other help and tips and, leads and stuff. And they'll make their own work together as friends. And that's always like the best. Mostly it's just like, I would just say like, learn as much about the theater as you can, read plays and see shows. Try to be as educated as you can about the canon, because that's sort of the stuff that, you're going to find yourself someday going like, oh, I have no idea what people are talking about. And it's really helpful. Like, I was a American and English literature major at Brown. So just reading plays was so much a part of my education, and thank God, because I had such a leg up on everybody else when things were getting produced and I kind of understood what was going on. And I would just say that sort of, like expose yourself to as much as you can. Do say yes to things, do shows, watch shows, read shows, like there's just, you can't do enough of that kind of reading and learning, I think, young. I think that only helps you. As far as, being a performer, great. If you can commit to that, like, I know this is what I want to do and I want to study this in school, that's awesome. At that point, I didn't know, and I couldn't commit to that because first of all, I didn't even know places like that existed. I'm not even sure they did exist when I was young. But like now, obviously, there's a lot of schools that are offering these programs. So if they want to do that, I'm all for it. I think it's amazing. But like I said, everybody's different, and you can come to it later in your life too. It's not going anywhere. I sort of feel like I was a late bloomer, and I didn't really start auditioning until I got to New York. And after a couple of years, I worked, like as a production assistant before I decided to pursue acting. So I just wanted to learn the business and be part of the business. And to this day, I truly believe that if acting hadn't worked out, I would be taking tickets or sewing costumes. I just love the theater. That's all I care about, is being in the theater.
Thank you. Thank you for your time, and just continuing the love for it. If what they're interested in today, maybe just be a lifelong theater lover,
right. Or it might mutate. They might turn into, cinema people or TV people.
Right. That's really my hope for them, wherever they wind up,
right.
Something.
Just to keep, pursuing it. That's, of course.
Yeah. Or they give me tickets to their Broadway show. I don't know, something like that. So, well, thank you.
Sure.
So Ann, what's your favorite musical?
Oh, wow. You can't answer that question.
I know, no.
They're all
I actually can. I have a musical that is my absolute hands down favorite.
Okay, well, all right. I'm going to answer this in stages. When I was growing up, the most important musical in my life was Sweeney Todd.
Ooh.
Okay.
Wonderful.
I've seen it a jillion times. Original Broadway cast, on the day it won the Tony, I saw, and many, many other productions since. That being said, that's not even my favorite Sondheim show now. Now it's Assassins.
Oh, yes, that's a great one.
Um, I don't know.
It's okay.
Like I can't, I can't. This is like Sophie's Choice. I don't know. Like I love them all for different reasons.
Agreed.
Um, I love Little Shop. I
Oh,
think that show is perfectly crafted, as is She Loves Me.
oh,
But they're very different.
they are, and I agree. I maybe was hasty. There's not just one. It depends on the mood and
Of
what you're
course.
looking for. Yeah, yeah.
And
And
my absolute, oh my God, okay, now I'm going to backtrack. My absolute all favorite of all time is Falsetto Land. You
oh,
could say falsettos or, but I learned Falsetto Land first.
oh, beautiful.
And that's the first one I saw. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, and I saw the original cast and you can't get over that.
Yeah.
I've never been able to get over that. So I love that, like in a deep way. I love that show. Ooh.
No, that makes
And 5,000 others.
as we're sitting here, I'm sure all of us, myself included, have thought of like 30 other things
Yeah, no,
that we love. Who was a performer who really inspired you growing up?
Judy Garland.
Mhm.
I wanted to sing like her. I still do a pretty good impression of her. And more importantly, I just feel like there's something about her vulnerability, how she is able to express herself in song, that is more moving to me and more piercing to me than almost any other performer. And also the joy that she brings to the up-tempo. Do the impression. Okay. I have old Judy and young Judy. Which would you like?
Old Judy, I think. Yeah.
All right. Okay. Sing hallelujah. Come on. Get happy. You're gonna chase all your cares away. Shout hallelujah. Come on, get happy. Get ready for the judgment day.
Yes, she is also my all-time favorite performer. I just, the way she used to get swept up in a song is just, there's nothing like it.
Oh, I mean, the Addison, Topeka, and the Santa Fe and Harvey Girls, which is a lame number by like, if anybody else tried to do it, you would just be like, so what? And it's just so compelling because she's doing it.
Oh, agreed.
I mean, come on.
From her TV series when she did Old Man River and Battle Hymn of the Republic.
Oh my God, Battle Hymn of the Republic. I
Oh
cannot.
my God.
I like cry every time I hear that version.
If you all have not listened to that, go watch it like right now. Oh.
Mine eyes have seen the
Yes.
glory. She's just so great.
Yes. Oh, and when the way the hand, it just comes in.
Yeah.
The cord over the shoulder. Yes. I may have watched a video once or twice.
Oh, have you?
Yeah. Yeah, no, that is. So, I have to ask, other than your Les Mis Thénardier experience, do you have any other moments that stick out as ooh, that was rough?
Oh, a million. Of course. Are you kidding? I did a solo show for Lincoln Center's American Songbook. It's very glamorous, you'd think. And it was terrifying because even though like I made my friends come and sing with me in a couple songs and stuff, it's basically just you by yourself, as yourself, trying to entertain, a gigantic glamorous room where the backdrop is a bunch of windows that face Central Park South. So it's like the most glorious backdrop. And like everybody, all you can think about is like, nobody's looking at me. They're looking at the traffic because it's just so pretty out there. And that was the most terrifying kind of like experience of my life, because I don't like being myself per se. I like being a character. So in that particular thing was really stressful, but I loved, I mean, ultimately I'm so proud of what I did in that show, and I loved doing it, but I can't do that again. People are always like, do your one woman show someplace. I'm like, no, I don't want to. Like, they're like 54 Below is like, do you have a show? It's like, I do, but not doing it because I don't want to. I would much rather be with a whole bunch of other people doing something together and playing a specific character than just like, here's Anne. Ugh, horrible.
Yeah, I think I can see Katie and Amanda and Brett agreeing as well. Okay, so Julia and Amanda, Katie, Brett, and Carrie, do you guys have any other questions or comments or things that you would like to know? Julia, go right ahead.
Sorry. Do you like TV? Do you like film, or do you like live theater more to perform?
Oh my God, live theater.
Well, like some people like the other side. I don't know.
No, I like doing TV, fine, and I like doing film, fine, but nothing's as good as live theater. First of all, because in live theater you get to practice, and you get to practice with the other people. In TV and film, it's like you have to show up with all your stuff memorized, right? That you've practiced by yourself in your room. And then when you meet on the set for the first time, and sometimes if you're lucky, you can actually like sort of like, okay, now you walk to the desk, and then he'll give you the paper. And then you go over here. Like, that's your direction. You know what I mean? It's not like, how do you feel when you're talking about, like, no, none of that. Like, all that acting work has had to happen by yourself somewhere far away, you know? And then for the first time you get on set, and then you talk, and then they talk, and they're like, oh, that's interesting. Now I'll talk to you again. But you've never practiced it. You're just doing it as fast as you can, as cleanly as you can, so that you can get the take and go home. That's terrible. Like, that's no fun for me. As an actor, for me, the process is the fun part. I like rehearsal. So, of course, I'm going to pick theater, because that's a story you tell together in real time, as opposed to, here's a scene I'd like to do with my scene partner who I just met. You know, like Clueless.
Wonderful.
Also, what is like the hardest part about being like in like trying to look for jobs and like do whatever theater you can? Like, what's the hardest part of like all the rejection, or I don't even know if you get rejection, but like
Oh, I get rejection, Julia. I think the hardest part for me now is that I'm really old. So there's not that many people I haven't auditioned for before. So you keep going back to the room, and it's like all people you know already. And you sort of go like, don't you know me by now? Can't you tell right away if I could do this or not? Do we really have to go through 5 pages and maybe 2 songs to either prove that I'm right or not right for something? It's like, at this point, don't you kind of know? Like, that for me is the hardest, because you're just basically, you know, spilling your guts all the time for people you know. It's not like, I mean, I do audition for people that I don't know occasionally. These days, I usually just get offers for the stage. And if I go in for something, it's because the director does not know me, because they live in London or they live on the moon. I don't know where. But the point is that, like, they don't know, so I have to come in and sing 16 bars or 32 bars or whatever it is. And I usually never get those. But I think, you know, it's just hard to keep opening yourself up, basically. And knowing I probably am not right for this, and yet you are hauling me in, and it's like, okay, here we go. Even though I know I'm probably not right, and you know I'm probably not right, as I walked in the door. That's basically all you need. I think for most times when you're casting a part, you can kind of tell, like within the first 5 minutes, maybe or no. You know what I mean? There's no, and just the energy, and like you think that that person might be appropriate. It's hard. It's very hard to have rejection. Obviously, nobody likes it. It's no fun. But there's no other way to get through the process. I don't think. What are we going to do for the rest of our lives? Maybe we will be doing stupid, like, film taped auditions for the rest of our lives at this point. But God only knows. I mean, I just don't think I think there's no substitute for being in the room with somebody. That's basically it. So we have to go through it.
Wonderful. Well, do you have any pearls of wisdom or any anecdotes or anything you'd like to leave us with?
Well, remember when you sent me that gigantic list of questions? Like,
oh,
here are
yes.
some of the things we'll be discussing. And number one was like, how do you behave in the room or something?
Oh, yes, that's right. I wanted to, because, we will share some of this video with some of our students. And we had an issue during our last rehearsal process of
Did we?
during not Julia wasn't part of this, but respect during the actual rehearsal process and for your production team. So what would you say is, what are rehearsal yes and no's, and what will get you kicked out of a show altogether?
Wow, that's a toughie. To me, rehearsal yes and no's is that basically you're in the Army, right? I feel like a show is a military operation, and the actors are soldiers in the Army. Okay, you have a general, your director. You have a question, you got to go to your superior officer first. Even if you've got like the greatest idea in the world, and it probably is a really good idea, you still should clear it with your general before you like throw it out there. I think that's just protocol. Okay. Same as if you're with your choreographer. They're all ranked officers. You are not a ranked officer. So you have to ask them for permission to deviate from whatever you've been told to do. That's it. A really good example of this is when I do things that are like with new scripts, right? I did this encores of I Married an Angel, which is a really old, terrible Roger and Hart show. And they had hired these two writers to rewrite the book. Okay. And, I don't know, we were doing the rehearsal, and I got this brilliant idea for a line. But I didn't just spring it. I went to the writers and I told them what my idea was, and then they cleared it. And then I said to the director, I'm going to try something new here, see if you like it. Is that okay with you? He was like, yes. Do you know what I mean? It's sort of like and this is true of everybody. Just ask. They'll shut you down if they absolutely do not want to hear a new thing or cannot deal with it, or it's not the right time or whatever it is. But I just sort of feel like, there's a chain of command and you got to follow it. That's all, And that being said, don't tamp your ideas. Part of why you're in the room is that you're bringing ideas to the room. The reason I felt comfortable talking to the writers, it was like, well, if you don't want me to come up with stuff, why would you even hire me in the first place? Do you know what I mean? It's like, it's me. It's like, already I'm playing a 70-year-old countess, or whatever it is. It's like, so you could have cast somebody more right for that, but you hired me, obviously, because you think I can bring something new to the table. Well, here's an idea I'm bringing. Here it is. What do you think? Like that. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I just want to, again, thank you so much for your time. This has been amazing. And thank you for just being willing to talk about anything and everything and go into all this with us and sharing stuff with our team and our mentoring teachers and a student. And it's been really, really awesome.
Oh, good. I hope it's been helpful, and thank you for asking. It's been fun.
It's been a lot of fun. It's also great to meet someone who does an awesome Judy Garland impersonation, uh, and
Yeah.
who knows the Battle Hymn of the Republic video, which is
Oh, wow.
um, yeah. Anytime you would like, you're in town and you want to stop by and visit the Academy, we'd love to have you as our guest. Or if you're ever feeling the need to want to do an in-person masterclass, we'd love to have you and our students
Oh,
to work with you and learn.
I would love to come back to St. Louis. It's one of my favorite places, as
Well,
you know.
yeah.
Yeah, at this point, I feel like I'm never getting on a plane again.
Yeah, no.
So, we'll see.
Yes.
Maybe Amtrak will keep that option open. I don't know. Yeah, good luck, everybody.
Thank you. And you as well. Stay safe in the city. And it's been our honor. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Bye.
Everybody,
Thank you,
for
Ann.
joining
Be
us.
safe. Stay well.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us. And we'll see you again next time. Thank
Okay.
you.
Bye.